Welcome to the shadow frequency, where the veil between this world and the next grows thin, and the things that whisper in the dark are given voice. From the cryptic candlelit studios, deep in the Indiana forests, your host, Matt Wilson, and his spectral producer, Juniper Ravenwood, unearth the forbidden, the forgotten, and the fearsome. So, still your heart, dim the light, and listen closely. For once you tune into the shadow frequency, you may never tune out.
Welcome back to the shadow frequency, where the signal bends, the lights flicker, and the stories waiting in the dark always seem to know our names. I'm Juniper, and tonight the air feels cold with that very specific way it does before something unexplained steps out from behind the ordinary. You ever notice how some mysteries don't need a haunted house or a monster in the woods? Sometimes all they need is a runway, a winter night, and one decision nobody can take back. All right, let me get into the file cabinet here, and let's see. We've got an old ferry receipt that smells faintly of seaweed, a cracked hotel key with no room number, a very suspicious biscuit tin full of newspaper clippings. Oh, here we go. Tonight's file, 344, the Great Mull Air Mystery. This case takes us to the Isle of Mull in Scotland on Christmas Eve, 1975. A former RAF pilot and professional musician named Peter Gibbs takes off from a small grass airstrip beside the Glenforsa Hotel in a rented red and white Cessna. No runway lights, no control tower, just the dark, the sound of Mull and his girlfriend standing below with 2 flashlights that guide him home. He never comes back. For months, searchers find no plane, no wreckage, no body. Then Peter Gibbs is discovered on a hillside near the airfield, apparently dead from exposure, with injuries that do not neatly explain a crash. And that is where the mystery stops behaving like an accident and starts feeling like something stranger. Chris, what do you think of this one?
June, it's bloody unsettling because the body should have solved it. Usually, when someone missing is found, the mystery starts closing down. But this one does the opposite. You find him, and suddenly the questions get worse.
Exactly, it's like the island gave back just enough to keep everyone looking over their shoulder. Matt, what about you?
This one has that weird geography to it. The runway, the sea, the hillside, the road, the hotel, everything is close enough that the answer should be obvious, but somehow nothing lines up.
And that's the part that crawls under my skin. The map is right there, but the story refuses to land on it. And with that, Matt, let's step into tonight's case.
You are tuned to the shadow frequency, where every whisper tells a story from beyond the veil. Hosted by Matt Wilson. Produced by Juniper Ravenwood, with Chris Beach. The darkness continues.
Thanks, Juniper, and I'll say right off the top, tonight's case has that perfect shadow frequency chill to it because it does not begin in some abandoned ruin or cursed graveyard. It begins in a hotel dining room on Christmas Eve, with warmth behind the windows, drinks on the table, and a winter island outside pressing its face against the glass. Peter Gibbs was not just some passing tourist with more confidence than sense. He had flown Spitfires in the war. He had logged years of civilian flying, and he had built a second life as a musician and businessman. That makes what happens at Glenforsa feel even stranger, because an experienced pilot looked out at a moonless stretch of the Isle of Mull at a grass runway with no proper nightlights, and still decided he could take a red and white Cessna up into the dark, circle around, and come back down as if the night itself would cooperate. And that is where this story first hooks into you, because every person in that hotel could still see the human choice being made, but none of them could see what was waiting beyond the trees. I'm opening the file here, and the first thing that I'm going to pull out is a grainy airfield photograph, the kind of old picture where the landscape looks too quiet to be innocent. You can see the Glenforsa Strip lying beside the Sound of Mull, not like a modern airport, not like some glowing runway with guidance lights and a tower watching over every movement, but a thin strip of grass between hill, water, and weather. That detail matters. Gibbs and Felicity Granger had been using the hotel as their base while they looked around the islands for hotel properties, and earlier that same day they had flown out to Skye and returned safely. So by dinner, the plane was familiar, the airstrip was familiar, and maybe that familiarity gave the night a false friendliness. Gibbs borrowed 2 powerful torches, and Felicity was to stand near the runway holding those little human-made beams as landing markers. Imagine that image for a second. One woman in the cold trying to turn 2 flashlights into a runway system, while the sound of Mull lies black nearby and the hills sit silent around her like witnesses that already know the ending. The witnesses at the hotel saw Gibbs taxi out. Some later remembered odd details, the engine running longer than expected, the aircraft lights going off and on, the sense that the whole thing had become a small private ritual out there in the dark. Guests moved to watch from inside, turning out lights to cut reflections in the glass, waiting for the aircraft to make its little circuit and return. And then the Cessna lifted. From what people could see, the takeoff looked clean. One experienced observer reportedly thought it looked perfectly handled. That's almost worse, isn't it? If the plane had lurched or coughed or staggered into the air, the mind would have a place to put the fear. But this was different. The red and white Cessna rose, crossed into the blackness, and vanished behind the line of trees. After that, there was no dramatic crash heard across the hotel, no fireball on the horizon, no frantic radio call, no wreckage suddenly lit by flames, just a small aircraft swallowed so completely that the night seemed to close behind it. Felicity waited. That may be the most haunting part of the first act of this case, the waiting. She was standing out there with those torches trying to hold the runway in place with her own hands, expecting at any second to hear the engine come back around. Instead, the weather turned uglier. Rain and sleet began moving across the strip. The warmth of the hotel was behind her, but the man she loved was somewhere ahead, above the water or beyond the trees or already somewhere no map could name. At around half an hour, she returned alone. By then, the guests had gone from curious spectators to people staring at one another with that sick realization that something had slipped out of the normal world. Police were contacted, and the first search began in miserable conditions, following the likely path of the aircraft as best they could. But Mull gave them nothing. Not a snapped branch, not a plume of oil, not a scrap of red and white metal blinking in a torch beam. The island simply folded the plane into itself. At daybreak, the search widened. Volunteers, police, fishermen, aircraft, and later military help pressed across land and water. The obvious answer was that Gibbs had crashed into the Sound of Mull. It was cold, it was dark, the airstrip was unlit, and the sea was right there like a waiting mouth. But obvious answers usually leave behind obvious traces. A floating cushion, a piece of wing, a fuel slick, something dragged up by a boat, something caught along the shore. Instead, the searchers found only absence, and absence has a way of becoming a presence when it lasts long enough. For days, then weeks, then months, the case sat there like an unfinished sentence. Every returning searcher must have felt the same impossible pressure. The sense that the aircraft should be somewhere close. The answer should be sitting just past the next bend in the road or just under the next black patch of water. Peter Gibbs had gone up. The Cessna had not come down where anyone could find it. And on an island where every hill, road, shoreline, and field should have been able to testify, the witnesses went silent, and as if the island had decided the story was not ready to be told. And that's where we are before the case turns from disappearance into something much stranger. A missing plane is frightening enough. A body in the wrong place is another kind of nightmare.
That image of Felicity standing there with the flashlights is honestly awful. It's so small against all that darkness.
And the island not giving up a single clear piece of evidence right away.
Yeah.
That's what makes it feel like the place itself was involved.
Exactly. In the second half, we get to the hillside, the body, the missing aircraft, the later wreckage claims, and the question that never really goes away. If Peter Gibbs crashed into the sea, how did he end up where he did? Juniper, Chris, over to you.
Sometimes the discovery of a body closes a mystery. On the Isle of Mull, it only made the darkness deeper.
So far, we have Christmas Eve, an unlit airstrip, 2 flashlights, a confident pilot, and a plane that seems to vanish into a pocket of darkness. And I wonder what everyone listening is thinking right now. Was this simply a tragic flight gone wrong? Was something strange happening out there on that runway? Or did the island keep a secret that searchers walked right past? Chris, take it from here.
Thanks, June. And I have to say, this is one of those cases where the setting does half the work for you. A small airstrip, bad weather moving in, a man taking off into the dark, and then nothing. No crash, no wreckage, no clean answer. That's the kind of thing that sticks with you. While we're taking a quick breath here, make sure you like and subscribe to the Shadow Frequency on whatever platform you're using. It really does help the algorithms find the show and push these strange little transmissions out to more listeners. You can also find us on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast directories. And stop by shadowfrequencypodcast.com, where you'll find every episode, the companion blog, merch, show notes, and links to every platform where the show is available. If you want to support the show, you can buy us a coffee right there on the website. And if you've got a story, a question, or something weird you want to share, reach out through the site by email or voice message. Your message may even end up on a future episode. June, I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, Chris. And now it's time to fire up the spectrocosmic message materializer. Let's flip the switches, letting the tubes warm, watching the static crawl across the glass like tiny little ghosts with poor social skills. Let's see what the machine coughs up tonight. Here we go. A note just slipped out between the sparks, still warm from the other side. Let's brush off the ectoplasm, crack the seal, and see who found their way through the frequency. Tonight's message comes from Brandy in Vermont, who listens on Spotify. She says, I usually listen to the Shadow Frequency while I'm making dinner, right around that time when it's getting dark outside and the kitchen window starts acting like a mirror. I'll have Spotify playing while I'm chopping vegetables or stirring something on the stove, and then one of your UFO or haunting episodes will hit just right, and suddenly I'm checking the reflection behind me more than the recipe. I really enjoy how the show can feel creepy without feeling fake. The haunted location episodes are my favorite, but I'm always up for a good UFO mystery too. Thanks for keeping me company in the kitchen. Keep the stove's top glowing and the shadows friendly, Brandy in Vermont. Reddy, first of all, that kitchen window as a mirror detail is very real, and I do not trust any dark window after a haunting episode. Not one. Thank you so much for listening on Spotify and for letting us haunt the dinner routine a little bit. We appreciate it. And if you want to send us a message, you can email us at shadowpodcast@protonmail.com. Chris, I'll turn it back over to you for some shadow news.
Thanks, June. Brandy sounds like she has the perfect listening setup, although I agree with you. A dark kitchen window during a haunting episode is basically a portal with curtains. During a recent UFO-themed segment on Argentina's Vorterix station, the show Wai Quay introduced what they thought was a guest expert on flying saucers. There was just one problem. The man immediately clarified that he was a urologist, not a ufologist, and the mix-up sent the studio into laughter. The clip has since taken off online as one of the funniest on-air mistakes in recent memory, proving that sometimes live radio can be stranger than the topic itself. In more important news, NASA is aiming for a major first in deep space with a planned 2028 Mars mission called SR-1 Freedom. The spacecraft is designed to become the first interplanetary mission powered by a nuclear fission reactor, using nuclear electric propulsion instead of traditional solar power alone. The goal is to prove the technology works in deep space, while also delivering a payload of helicopter drones to explore parts of Mars that rovers cannot easily reach. If it launches on schedule, it could mark a major step toward the future of long-range space travel. June, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Chris. And honestly, urologist versus ufologist is the kind of mistake that sounds like the universe briefly changed the channel. But that NASA story is fascinating too. Nuclear electric propulsion, drones over Mars, future deep space travel. It is amazing how often the future still comes down to one question. Can we trust the machine once it leaves the ground? Which brings us right back to Peter Gibbs, his Cessna, and that cold stretch of darkness over Mull. Matt, take us into the second half.
A plane vanished into the Christmas Eve sky, but the man who flew it returned in a place that made no sense. That is what makes the Great Mull Air Mystery so chilling. Not what disappeared, but what came back.
Thanks, Juniper, and Brandy's email is perfect for this one because I can absolutely picture dinner being made in a Vermont kitchen while a story like this creeps in from the speakers. And Chris, that urologist and ufologist mix-up is going to live in my head for a while. But the NASA piece is interesting too because it reminds us how much faith we put in machines to carry us into hostile places. Tonight, though, we are talking about a much smaller machine, a little Cessna in a dark Scottish sky, and a mystery that became even more disturbing when Peter Gibbs finally came back into the story. In April of 1976, a local shepherd named Donald McKinnon found a body on a hillside not far from the Glenforsa airstrip. Not in the Sound of Mull, not strapped into a cockpit, not tangled in wreckage, lying across a fallen tree, roughly 400 feet up, in a place close enough to the airfield to make the discovery feel almost accusatory. It's the kind of detail that makes you look back over the original search and wonder whether the body was always there, waiting in plain sight, or whether the story had shifted after everyone stopped looking. And here's where the file gets heavier. I'm pulling out a photocopy of the post-mortem summary as it has been described in later accounts, and the details do not behave the way they are supposed to behave. The remains were decomposed, yes, after months exposed to winter weather, but the injuries were minor. There was no clear evidence of the kind of violent impact you would expect from a plane crash. No neat story written in broken bones. The cause of death was treated as exposure, which means the most chilling possibility is that Gibbs may have been alive after what happened in the sky. Even stranger, testing reportedly did not find clear traces of salt water or marine organisms on his clothing or boots. Now, picture the geography again. If he ditched in the sea, escaped, swam ashore, and then staggered inland, his clothing should have carried the sea with him. Maybe the weather erased it, and maybe 4 months of island rain scrubbed the evidence thinner than anyone wanted to admit. Maybe time blurred it. But in a case already built out of gaps, that missing salt becomes another black space on the map. There's also the question of direction. The body was found on a hillside, and some accounts suggest he may have been moving downhill when he collapsed. But to get there from the water, he would have had to make a series of choices that feel wrong in the cold light of morning. Why not follow the road? Why not head back toward the hotel lights? Why climb or cross into higher ground after surviving what already would have been a freezing, brutal ordeal? This is where the rational explanation deserves its moment, because it may be the closest thing to an answer. A pilot takes off in darkness from an unlit field, loses visual reference, hits or ditches in the water, escapes through the damaged windscreen, reaches shore in a state of shock and hypothermia, becomes confused, wanders the wrong way, and dies of exposure before finding help. That can happen. Hypothermia can steal judgment. Shock can make the familiar world alien. Heavy rain over 4 months could wash away evidence. It's a grim human explanation. But even after you say it out loud, the case still stares back and asks why it had to arrange itself in the strangest possible shape. Then comes the missing plane. For years, GAVTN remained the ghost in the story, because a body without its aircraft is not an ending, it's an accusation. In 1986, clam divers reportedly found wreckage of a red and white aircraft in about 100 feet of water, and the story included details that made the mystery sharper, not softer. Pieces scattered, a shattered windscreen, missing wings, and the chilling claim that both doors were locked. Later, in 2004, Royal Navy vessels doing coastal mapping located a small aircraft underwater in the same general area, but poor visibility and conflicting details left the identification muddy. One account had wings missing. Another suggested one wing was still attached. Some said the aircraft might be Gibbs' Cessna. Others pointed out that another red and white plane was known to have gone down in the region, so the wreckage becomes almost like an apparition. It appears just enough to pull the case toward the sea, then fades before it can close the door. And that brings us to the modern almost answer. In 2025, new reporting revived the idea that the wreckage had been located decades ago and that the most likely solution was the sea ditch, survival, and exposure scenario. Maybe that is the truth. Maybe Peter Gibbs made one dangerous decision. The dark took the aircraft, the water took the plane, and the cold took the man. But the shadow frequency question is not always, can we invent something stranger? Sometimes it is. Why does the ordinary explanation still feel haunted? Because with Gibbs, every answer keeps a little shadow attached. If he crashed, why so little trauma? If he swam, why no convincing sea trace? If he reached land, why move away from help? If the hillside was searched, why was he missed? If the wreck is his, why has the mystery never quite landed? The last image I keep coming back to is not the aircraft underwater. It is Felicity Granger on that runway, holding 2 torches against a black island sky, waiting for an engine that may have already crossed into something colder than the sea. Sometimes the strangest disappearances are not the ones where no body is ever found. Sometimes they are the ones where the body turns up and makes the mystery worse.
That is the part that gets me. The case has a likely answer, but it does not feel like a peaceful one.
Right.
It feels like the truth is still lying somewhere just out of reach.
And I hate that the flashlights are the detail I'll remember.
Yeah.
2 little beams of light trying to call someone home in the dark, just refusing to answer.
That's the Great Mull Air Mystery, a missing plane, a hillside body, and a Christmas Eve flight that still feels like it never fully came back down. Juniper, I'll turn it over to you.
The island did not give up wreckage, answers, or a clean ending. It gave back just enough to prove something happened, and not nearly enough to explain what it was.
Tonight, we followed Peter Gibbs from the warmth of the Glen Forsa Hotel to an unlit runway on the Isle of Mull, into the black sky, over the sound, and finally to the hillside where the discovery of his body raised more questions than it answered. Was it a tragic accident followed by confusion, exposure, and bad luck? Was the aircraft finally found beneath the water? Or did the island keep just enough of the truth to make sure this case would never rest completely? Thanks for joining us for episode 344 of The Shadow Frequency, The Great Mull Air Mystery. Come back next time when we open another file, follow another strange signal, and see what waits on the other side of the static. You guys want to say goodnight?
Good night, everyone. Thanks for spending part of your night with us. And if you happen to see a lonely runway light out there in the dark, maybe don't be the first one to follow it.
Good night, folks. Keep your eyes on the sky, your feet on the ground, and maybe give the sea a little extra respect after this one.
Good night from all of us at Shadow Frequency. Until next time, keep the signal steady, keep the shadows talking, and never assume the dark has told you everything it knows.
This episode was conjured with a solemn vow to explore the unexplained while remaining bound to the truths that have been unearthed. All interpretations are speculative and offered only for your enlightenment and your entertainment.